Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. I know it's been some time since the last video that I recorded. It's in a totally different background, but I've been caught in so many projects and so many things have happened in my life since the last one, even though I posted it quite soon. But today we're going to go back to something that is really essential for me, and it revolves around time management for entrepreneurs, and something that is very relevant to myself and to, I guess, everyone watching. So let's delve into it. We all have the same 24 hours a day, and different people, different entrepreneurs have so many things and tasks and so many different hats that they have to change and switch between. And most of us are overwhelmed with all the things that we have to do. So in the following video, we're going to be talking about the top 10 time management tips for entrepreneurs. This strikes really home for me because on a daily basis, I keep on using my calendar, keep on using the Pomodoro technique and all the different things that I'm going to show and explain in the following minutes. And the whole idea behind it is that everything that I'm going to explain is going to help you get more out of your day, reduce stress, and grow your business whilst not burning out and keeping things in perspective. So let's get into the video. So let's start with tip number one, and that is prioritizing tasks using the Eisenhower matrix. And as entrepreneurs, we're quite hectic. We have so many different things that we have to do on a daily basis and urgent tasks, but what is really important on a day-to-day? And one of the best ways to stay productive is by using the Eisenhower matrix to categorize your task into the 4 different quadrants. So the first quadrant is important and urgent. So these tasks are the ones that need the most attention, the immediate attention, like closing a deal or handling a crisis in your business, in your company, and you should actually focus on them right now. The second quadrant is important but not urgent. So these are strategic tasks, long-term planning, networking, content creation, and this can be easily scheduled in your time, in your calendar, based on what type of calendar you use. Personally, I use Google Calendar and it syncs through all my devices, so that's really useful as a side tip. The third quadrant is urgent but not important. So those could be distractions, meetings, things such as emails, unnecessary phone calls, and these could be easily delegated if you have the capacity, or it could be prioritized less in your task and to be kind of like end of the day tasks, or after you're tired, after you've done all the priority tasks as well. And the fourth and final quadrant in this first tip is neither urgent nor important. So these are the normal time wasters, social media scrolling, watching YouTube videos, and unless it's this one, and those can be easily eliminated. Those can be categorized as entertainment. Those are things that you do outside of your work hours, and these are things that indirectly help your business if they're actually on topic or not. If you're in the firefighting mode, you're focusing only on the urgent quadrant. So those are the 2 things that I've mentioned previously. But the whole idea behind it is you need to be focusing on what's important, what actually is going to make an impact on your business, instead of keeping you in that nervous position, in that stress mode that you are constantly trying to do everything and not prioritize based on the Eisenhower matrix. And the things that are in those important quadrants, this is where the real business actually happens and the growth happens. Let's go to the next tip. The tip 2 is to embrace the 80-20 principle, and this is the Pareto principle. Some of you might have heard this, and I've talked about this in a previous video. It was around Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week. His whole premise of the book is around that. So in a summary, the 80-20 rule is that 80% of your results actually come from 20% of your efforts, and we can take this Pareto principle in action. Let's suggest that 80% of your revenue actually comes from 20% of your clients, and 80% of your productivity actually happens in just 20% of your working hours. So if we can identify and focus on the 20% that actually provide the biggest ROI, and those are actually that drive the biggest results, we can break things into a list and see what, for example, if we could complete only 2 tasks for the whole day and not be overwhelmed with 10 or 15 tasks, depending on on the size of them, which could actually are the most important based on the previous tip. So not the ones that are most urgent, but the ones that are the most important actually are going to have the biggest impact on your business. So the whole idea is to prioritize those and not focus on the number of the things. This is my side note into this. Not focus on the numbers, but focus on the ones that are actually going to make the biggest impact. And don't focus on doing 10 tasks that are meaningless for your business. Focus on the one actually going to bring you the client is going to bring you the exposure depending on what you're focusing on right now. Tip number 3 is to plan ahead with time blocking. And this is something that I do personally, and it could be really powerful. Initially, I was really against it and actually breaking down my day. But at the end of the day, even though it might feel as a struggle for you to actually follow what you planned the day before or the night out before, it's all for you, and you're making the decisions for yourself. So if you're planning and using things like calendars, I'm using Google Calendar, but if you schedule your day in advance, even the breaks, even the time allocation, even the times you work for a specific company, and then prioritize based on the task at hand, everything could be planned out before, so you cannot be worrying about things and just focus on what's a task, what's important. You're lowering the probability of not wanting to do a task or based on your emotional state, but you're actually planning for yourself, and you're dedicating different blocks of time for deep work, for emails, for breaks, for meetings. And I'm going to share a rough couple of steps on how to do that. So you can start each week by scheduling your top priorities. That's the first thing. The second thing is to block from 60 to 90 minutes of uninterrupted focus time on your most important work. So this could be the 1 or the 2 tasks that you have per day based on the outcome and based on the strategy that you're targeting right now. For example, it could be business expansion into global expansion. It could be finding clients. It could be sales. It could be marketing. It could be so many different things. The third thing is to batch similar tasks together. So the idea behind it is to block a time of, let's say, 1 hour to check all the emails and not switch focus and check every 5 minutes what's the latest, what's the most urgent task, and try to see that the emails is a form of communication. It's not urgency, depending, of course, on the email. The fourth thing is to leave buffer time for unexpected things, because there's always something that needs to be fixed. There's always something that comes up in your time, in your schedule. So you have to always account for time that a specific task takes more, or for example, something urgent comes and you have to prioritize your tasks based on the urgency, of course. The final thing about the third tip is, if it's not scheduled, it's probably not getting done. So the idea behind it is to lose that mindset, wanting to do so many different things and trying to get it out of the emotional state of pushing things forward and forward and forward, actually going to make the biggest impact on your business, on your specific strategy at the moment. So let's go to the next. Tip number 4 is to delegate and outsource tasks. A lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, do a lot of different things. They change a lot of hats, like I mentioned before, but not every single task have to be done by you, even though you might be struggling with the mindset that everything is better if I do it myself, but then you're just running towards the burnout. And instead of that, focus on what you're providing the biggest value. Try to delegate the rest. And you can ask yourself, do I really need to be doing this specific task? Does it actually help me in the long run? Or can I delegate it? So for example, you can hire a virtual assistant for admin work. You can get a freelancer for content creation or for design, or you can automate repetitive tasks using AI or different types of software depending on the specific task at hand. You shouldn't view delegation as a form of giving up control, but it's about maximizing the impact that you have on your business. And something like a little sub tip that I can give you is, for example, you can count what's your hourly rate, how many dollars, euros, depending on your currency, you earn per hour, and then try to see whether something as meaningless as, for example, writing an email, spending 15-20 minutes on one, is going to push you in that direction of actually helping you, instead of, for example, hiring a freelancer, using AI, or whatever the case may be, and then focus on the biggest impact task. You know what you're good at, you know what you're passionate about on your day-to-day. So the tasks that you can outsource without a significant impact on the quality of them are the ones that should be delegated. So let's move to the next. Tip number 5 is to limit distractions and to set boundaries. Distractions could easily kill your productivity, and here's how you can claim your focus. One idea on this topic is to turn off all notifications when working on high priority tasks. That's easily done. You can use do not disturb mode on your laptop, on your phone, and all the technology that you use on a day to day. Another thing that you can do is to have a dedicated workplace. So, for example, right now I'm in my office. This is the place of work for me, and I know that once I get into this space, everything else is out of bounds. Everything else is outside of my focus, and people in the house know that I'm not to be disturbed whilst I'm working. And it actually creates a separation in my head and creates this space that I'm not constantly thinking about work, even though I am. But I know that when I get into the office, this is where the work happens. Another thing on this topic to limit distractions and to set boundaries is to set boundaries with everyone that you know. So they could be family, employees, clients. And just because you're available, it doesn't mean that you're always accessible. So for example, you could be focusing on specific tasks for your clients. You could be focusing on high impact things and things that you actually pre-negotiated before doing it. And for example, if someone is coming with an urgency to do something, but then you're not constantly, for example, checking the emails or checking Slack. So there's always time to negotiate, and there's always time to work out what needs to be done, what needs to be happening in your day to day. And people need to know that even though you're online, you're not on the, how should I say, on the nervous position of actually fight or flight response, I think it's called. Yeah, just set the boundaries with everyone that has an impact on your day to day. And another thing you can do is to start your day in airplane mode, so you can focus not on the emails, the no messages, just focus work. Just focus on the work that needs to be done. Focus on the things that I mentioned before. For example, the most important tasks, the ones that are going to benefit your business and your income, if that's what you're working on. Tip number 6 is to utilize technology wisely. And this could be all different technologies, all different softwares, could be a time savers, or it could be time wasters. And the trick is knowing what tools to use and what tools are the ones that are going to benefit you the most. So I'm gonna go through a couple of tools that I use. So for example, Trello, Asana, or Notion could be some of the softwares that you use for task management, depending on what you prefer, depending on the price points, of course. Calendly is something that I personally use as well to automate meeting scheduling. So this is my book a calendar time. This integrates really easily with your Google Calendar, with your work calendar, and everything like that. So people can book meetings with you based on what you do and if that's actually relevant. The next technology is Google Calendar for time blocking. So I mentioned this previously. This is something that I do on the day-to-day. I block hours, I block time, I block different things. So I know what to prioritize, and sometimes I over block the hours based on the time that it's actually gonna take. But I'd rather have a buffer time. And for example, if I have to do like recording this video, I have to do this video twice or more times if I'm not happy with the quality or the sound or whatever the case may be. I know I have time for it, and I'm not in a rush to do this in 30 minutes. And the final thing is Zapier. I know a lot of you probably have heard this, is to automate repetitive processes. So Zapier creates these automations between different types of software. They could automate repetitive processes. Google it, search it, and see if this is something that actually going to be beneficial for you. Pretty much, if something could be automated, scheduled, or optimized, don't waste your time on actually doing it manually, and see where the impact of using a software or $50 or $20 or $10, depending on the price point, can actually save you hours and hours in advance or meaningless emails. So research the tools that I mentioned and see what actually works for your specific case. Number 7 is to set smart goals. And setting smart goals revolves around creating goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So instead of focusing on goals like I want to grow my business, let's break it down into the SMART system. So specific, it could be to increase the website traffic by 20%. Measurable is to track it using analytics. Achievable is to not set unrealistic expectations. Relevant is to focus on goals that actually drive business growth, so don't waste your time on anything else, like I mentioned before. And time-bound is to set a specific deadline on when to achieve the specific tasks. So SMART goals actually give you clarity and direction, helping you to avoid wasting your time on random, unfocused work. Focus more on setting SMART goals and something that actually can be tracked and see the outcome of your actions, of your input. And the whole idea behind it is to, once again, to get out of your head, out of your emotional system, and to see what can be optimized based on the analytics and based on the data that you have and that you get from doing the specific task. Tip number 8 is to take regular breaks, and this is called the Pomodoro technique. I've used it time and time again throughout my work and my career, and just overall working nonstop doesn't mean that actually working for long hours makes you productive. And this is why I use the Pomodoro technique. So you can create, I think there are different tools on for example, on the Apple computers, on Macs. You can have a specific timer on top of your computer, and you can do 25 minutes of focused work. And actually there's a counter on top of your screen, and then you do a 5-minute break, so to speak. And then you can do this 4 times, so 4 times on the batches of 25 plus 5, so that's 2 hours, and then you can take from 15 to 30-minute break. And the whole idea is to keep you focused, so there's like something like a countdown, you see it on 25 minutes, or I have to focus on this task. And it keeps you refreshed and prevents the burnout. But also sometimes for myself, I see that 25 minutes is a really small chunk of time if I have to do a bigger task. 2 different points of optimization here is to try to break it down into smaller bits and pieces so you can get into the 25-minute period, but also increase the Pomodoro and don't focus on only 25. Let's, for example, focus on 15 minutes and see. And the whole idea behind the whole tips and everything like that is to test out and to learn something new, test out what works for you, and optimize based on your performance, based on how you feel about things and whether it actually brings you closer to that time allocation in that breathing room that you probably should have in your day-to-day as an entrepreneur. Tip number 9 is to learn to say no. And myself included, a lot of entrepreneurs actually focus on saying yes to everything. So meetings, calls, collaborations, everything is a yes. Whilst you are in that hustle mode, whilst you are chasing goals, chasing your dreams, chasing the income, chasing the sales. But every single yes means that you're actually saying no to something else. And before committing and actually saying yes, I know sometimes we are emotional, sometimes we're hyped up based on non-opportunity, but you should ask yourselves the following questions. First of all, does this align with my goals? Does this actually bring me closer to my yearly goal, to my monthly goal, to my ultimate self, right? The second thing is this the best use of my time? So for example, if there's a meaningless meeting, you can actually quote unquote be rude and say, I'm sorry, but an email would suffice, and try to say no, or just say I'm not interested. This doesn't align with my goals, with my priorities. So work priorities. Life is totally different. And the third question you should ask yourself is, if I say yes, what do I have to sacrifice in terms of time? So for example, being bombarded myself with thousands of sales calls and messages and things like that, people are trying to sell you something. It might not be the most, how should I say this? It might not be the most easy thing to say no, or try to be as diplomatic as you can. But people on the other side actually know that a no is better than actually wasting time and just pretending to be interested in something, having meetings and trying to be Even though you're just doing it for their own benefit and just doing it not to say no, right? And try to be kind and generous. So at the end of the day, time is your most valuable resource and you have to protect it furiously. Tip number 10, we're coming to the final tip of the video, and that's tip number 10 is to reflect, adjust, and improve. Time management, as most things in our entrepreneurial journey, it's not a set and forget type of thing. It's a skill that actually improves with practice. And here are some things that are actually going to help you achieve that. At the end of each week, review what worked and what didn't based on all the tips and everything that I mentioned in the video. Adjust your schedule, remove unnecessary tasks, and refine your process. You know best what actually works, you feel what's working. Even though it might be the easiest thing, I would say for me, blocking time and using my calendar was the biggest impact that I've achieved in my day-to-day, because it actually allows me to set and forget things, and once a task is happening or this idea happens in my head, I always plan it for tomorrow, and then if tomorrow things are more urgent, then I reschedule things and change based on the priorities and based on what's going to bring the biggest impact. So like I mentioned, refine your process, test out, see what works, what doesn't, and always on the lookout for ways to optimize and improve. Even though this video is recorded in 2025, there's always something new that actually happens. So be on the lookout, test out different things, and remember that consistency and small changes actually compound over time. So the daily optimization of your time and the allocation are actually going to bring you so much free time that you haven't thought before, that you have to create new tasks or take a little bit of break or take a little bit of relaxation in throughout your day. This has been tip number 10. In conclusion, I would like to urge you to take control of your time. And I've mentioned 10 powerful time management tips for entrepreneurs. And if you made it this far, I know that you are serious about taking control of your time and scaling your business effectively. And here's an action step that you can take as a takeaway, right? Pick one tip from today's video and implement it immediately. So time management isn't just about working harder, but it's about working smarter. Thank you for watching this. Drop a comment below with your favorite tip or the one that you're planning to try. If you found this helpful, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more entrepreneurial focused content, and I'll see you in the next video. My mind is telling me yes. No. No.